Hey guys, it's Liam the Prove It Guy, and this video is 10 tips on running. So as a disclaimer to start with, I don't run. I've tried running, I just don't enjoy it. But I've worked with a lot of runners and I've been to a lot of events where I've met a lot of different runners as well. So this is going to be my 10 tips. But as an added bonus, I've asked Shane Mullan, who's a guy that's competed in over 60 marathons, done loads of ultras. He's run fire and ice in Iceland. He does just some crazy stuff. So his tips are going to come at the end as well. So they'll be maybe more practical. I'm not actually sure what he's going to talk about, but hopefully you enjoy it. And let's get on with tip number one. So tip number one for me is look after your feet. So it seems like a silly question, but anytime I work with mobility with runners and I ask them how often they take their shoes off and just stretch their toes or move about, it's not something that seems to be focused on. So the easiest thing to do is to get yourself a tennis ball, and even just for 5 minutes a day on each foot, just roll your foot on it. So you're just basically rolling back and forward. If you can, try to separate the toes, try to pick up the tennis ball with your toes. Obviously this is my hand, but you know what I mean. Loosening up your feet will help get the blood back to the feet, will keep them from swelling as much whenever you run, and will keep them just more flexible so you can impact the ground better. So I guarantee if you've done any amount of running, you've either had sore shins or sore feet at some point. So something as simple as rolling a tennis ball or a half bottle of water or something, just to stretch the feet, make them more flexible, the toes and the feet more flexible, will increase your ability to run, will help with fluid in the feet, will help with pain in the feet, and will just get you used to moving them so that you can feel the impact on the ground better, so then you can improve your stride. So tip number two is to increase your hip mobility. So do things like a sumo squat or anything just that opens up your hip. There's a million exercises, you can just Google them. I have videos myself that I can link below this video. But you want to be opening up your hip so that you can chamber better. So when you move, you lift the hip so your hip's coming up rather than traveling forward. When your hip comes up, it means it will come down in a better stride, which means you will land cleaner throughout the structure of your body to propel you faster forward. So doing hip mobility in general, because again, you're using a lot of hip, your torque of the hip, everything that you do to run. Tip number three is posture. So an example I use a lot is that you never see a sprinter that's got really big, powerful legs, but no upper body. They're always ripped the whole way through. And the reason for that is because they need to use their body. When they run with their whole posture. So they're chambering up through the knee, through the hip. They're also chambering through the shoulder and the elbow. So they're projecting their whole body. As well as that, they're not sinking. So a lot of runners I work with will have either hip or back issues. So the hip mobility will help that. But the being used to your posture and thinking about how you run and move fluently throughout your whole body will increase your endurance because you're not crumbling over. It will increase your ability to breathe because you're able to stay open with it, and it will also just keep you stronger in general. The stronger you can keep your core, so the more taut you can keep it as you run and as you chamber, the less likely you are to injure yourself by running at a pace where you're crumpled or hunched over. When you're doing that, you're impacting the ground wrong, which is shocking the joints as well. So this way you're keeping yourself straighter, you're able to chamber, so you're developing more power, but essentially you're looking after the longevity of your body. Tip number four is breathing. So this is something I talk with all my runners, all my sports athletes at all. Any sport, the more you breathe controlled, the better you're going to be at that sport. So practicing different breathing, like breathing through your belly. So when you breathe in, instead of inflating and lifting your chest, you want to breathe in. So I have to breathe out to breathe in, but you need to breathe in so the stomach goes out. So even my chest can stay sunk because I'm actually pulling my diaphragm down, which is filling my lungs more. And then when I breathe out, my stomach comes in. So whenever you're breathing like that, you can control your breathing a lot more. You can take on a lot more air, which means you will be oxygenating the blood better, which is bringing more oxygen into the muscles so that you can run for longer distance without cramping or things like that. Because you're breathing steadily, when you get to something like a hill, you're able to breathe instead of what a lot of people do is they breathe in and they force that air out, or they hold and then breathe that way. So it's not controlled. When you can control your breathing, so practicing these outside of your actual training and then doing specific breathing training drills with running, you then will catch on quicker if you start to change your breathing as you go. Once you've done that, then you can bring it back to regular breathing. More oxygen to the body, more oxygen pumping around the body stays fresher, you're able to go further. Tip number 5 is fueling up before you run. So maybe the week before. So I talked to a lot of runners and they change the way they eat a week before. So they do carb loading and things like that. So carb loading is good because you're increasing your glycogen levels, which is fine, and you're giving your body a lot of fuel so that it can go on. But you can carb load and do it clean. So maybe the week before. So I talked to a lot of runners and they change the way they eat a week before. So they do carb loading and things like that. So carb loading is good because you're increasing your glycogen levels, which is fine, and you're giving your body a lot of fuel so that it can go on. But you can carb load and do it clean. For example, recently I've talked with Shane and he's actually done 3 marathons in 3 days, so one after the other. And for the first one, he just fueled solely on potatoes. So you can carb load and be fresh as well without carb loading. A lot of people carb load with Haribo and just food that isn't great for the body. So whenever you're fueling for your run, don't just think about the amount of calories you think you're going to burn, so then you have to replace them straight away. Think about the amount of calories you're going to burn, what you think you would actually need to get through it. So what excess calories you already have so that you don't need to worry about fueling up. So if you're going to burn 5,000 calories, you don't need to eat 5,000 calories because you'll already have eaten through the week that you might have some spare, some left over. But if you do for some reason have to eat 5,000, try to think about where that's coming in. So it's not just about calories. Your body's going to be using nutrients as well. So think about getting fresher food in. More of the fresh food will help you fuel for longer. There'll be more nutrients and vitamin within your body so that your body will have more to take on that's actually good fuel instead of eating pizzas or cakes or whatever. So think about whenever you're fueling that it's for longevity in the run, but also for just life in general. So if you every week you go to do a long run or you go to do a marathon and you fill yourself up on crap food, that's going to take a toll after a while, and you'll notice yourself feeling sluggish through the run or after the run. As well as that, your body just isn't going to recover as quickly as it could if it was fueled well. So think about your fuel, what you're putting in, and then that should prepare you better for the actual day. So tip number 6 is to fuel yourself during the race. So this is one of the first things I noticed when I got involved with the runners. The first time I went down was a 24-hour race where they ran in where Game of Thrones was filmed, Castle Welland, I think, or Castle Black, depends what you want to call it. That when people do marathons, they drink gels and they eat stuff along the route that they wouldn't normally take. So if you wouldn't go out on a Monday night for your 5-mile run and take some sort of gel with you because you don't feel that you need that. If you don't need it then and you're not training your body to run on that sort of fuel, and then you just expect it to help you throughout a run and then wonder why the next day your body feels sluggish and tired and sometimes you feel ill. Tip number 7 is what do you do after? So how do you fuel yourself after? If you've done something that's incredible that lots of people will never do, like I for one will most likely never run a marathon, so it is an incredible thing. But fuel yourself right after so that, like for example, if you want to go out that night and celebrate, like eat healthily so that your body's got nutrients, because if you just stick a load of alcohol in there, your body has to burn the alcohol before it can even repair itself, before it can get into the nutrients that you've given it. So try to get as much in before you start drinking. Try to think about what you have to do the rest of the week, like with your job or just life in general. So the more you fuel yourself clean and for recovery, then the faster your body will recover. As well as that, if you've been taking all these tips on board and you're thinking about your posture and what you eat and everything, you'll be more self-aware. You'll understand how your body works. And that way you'll be able to know what's sore in the body and what stretches are going to be most beneficial for you. You'll know what food your body doesn't like. You'll know what food that it does like. Tip number 8 is mindset. So think about the type of person you are. Are you a morning person? Are you an evening person? That will determine again whether it's going to be best for you to run in the morning or the evening. Think about how you prepare yourself the night before a big run or an event. Do you go to bed earlier? Do you read a book? Do you take a bath? Do you do things that relax you so that you're better fueled, better prepared mentally and physically for the event or the run ahead? And then think about whenever you're doing the run. So a lot of people talk about the wall, that they hit a wall. So one of the techniques that I work with runners is to think of it like an actual wall. When you get there, hit a wall, just sidestep the wall. It seems like an easy thing to say, but whenever you do that, you're interrupting the pattern of thinking about how heavy your legs are, or the fact that there's a wall in front of you. So it is a mental wall, but if it's a block, then you just need to change the direction slightly. You can't go backwards because that would be silly, but you can go forwards, to the side, and then forward again. Thinking about the way you run, and pay attention to your body, and listen to the negative thoughts that you're saying. Are you telling yourself you're tired? Are you looking at a hill and thinking, God, that's wild hilly? Are you thinking that your legs are going to be heavy? So another thing that I do in the hypnotherapy is I stick people's feet to the floor by making their legs heavy. So that's just their imagination. So if they can do that then, and then I teach them how to think of it differently so that their feet become light. Once you start to think of that in your running, if you start to think that your feet are heavy, they're going to get heavier. If you think they're light, then you're going to feel lighter. So try to think about your mindset overall, so preparing for the run or the event, and then just during it as well. Once you sort of understand how you tick, you can then bring yourself motivational speeches into your head. You can listen to the right type of music, so have a song that is the song that gets you over the hill. So think about your mindset. It's very important in general life, but if you're going to compete, you want to be strong-minded. You want to be working on your mind just as much as you work on your body. Tip number 9 is goal setting. So I would tell anyone that does any fitness that goal setting is really important. If you don't know where you're aiming for, then you're never going to know how close you are to getting there. So for example, if you want to do a half marathon, there are steps and goals and like structure that can get you there. So you hire someone like Shane that will take you running and will be able to give you a program that builds you up to do a half marathon. Then when you get the half, you might want to do a full or an ultra or whatever it is you might want to do. You might want to skip the half and go straight to a full. When you do something like that, you get someone to help you set the goals. So then week in, week out, you know where you are. So then what won't happen is you won't blow up on the run. So I've seen this a lot where people take off really fast. And you, like at the start, when I knew nothing about running, I used to think, God, they're keen, they're going to do really well. And then I recognize that person coming back in around, because I've been to a lot of lap races. And then I'd be saying to Shane, like, that person looks buckled and they're only been running for like an hour. That's because they don't understand their pace and they take off way too fast. They might have done a 10K at a certain amount of time. And then they've just thought, well, if I can do 10K at this time, then I can probably do a half marathon at double that or whatever, instead of having a structured plan. So goal setting is really important. And again, that way it'll keep you more focused on doing your flexibility, because you'll be thinking, right, I've run 10 miles today and I'm actually tight, my knee's tight. So it gets you more aware of the body. Then you can start to stretch more, and that will help again for your future plans. Once you set a goal, you can go beyond your goal or you can fall short of the goal. Either way, it doesn't really matter, as long as you follow a plan towards the goal. Then at least you know, right, that goal was too ambitious or not ambitious enough, which is the case a lot of times. And you can start to create better goals, talk to your coach, talk to yourself, write things down. Whenever you set your goals, you can make educated decisions to decide whether or not you're healthy enough to do the marathon, whether you're healthy enough to keep going, whether it's going to wreck your body for the rest of your week, because you understand your capabilities from the outset. Tip number 10 is to enjoy the view. So this is something I worked with Shane whenever he did the fire and ice, and it was one of the things I said was I felt really important. He was running somewhere incredible, and if he had just done the run and stared at his feet or stared at the path in front and came home, it wouldn't have been the experience that he had by stopping and taking photos and looking around him and seeing the volcanoes. And it's something I think for all runners. A lot of the marathons and stuff are running through incredible cities or towns, or you're running around coasts, or you're lapping somewhere beautiful. And people don't see that. All they see is their feet, which you can look at every day of the week, especially whenever you're doing your tennis ball rolling. So enjoying the view for me is like, reward yourself for putting in the effort and the work. Yes, try to get the best time that you possibly can get, but Don't look back over 10 marathons or 20 marathons or 2 marathons and all you remember is the pain of it, or your feet, or the path in front of you. Enjoy the view, to me, sort of expands to enjoy the journey. So one of the things about, I found from doing things with runners and going with them to different events, is I get to go to places like I would never get to go to normally, places that are closed, but they open for these events, and I get to see some beautiful places. Yes, I'm not running at them, so I enjoy them a lot more. But if you are running and you take the time to look around you and enjoy the scenery, same as if you just run around your town, look at what's happening, enjoy the run. Don't just do it for a number, do it because you enjoy it, and that way it will increase the longevity of your running, because you actually want to do it, because you enjoy more aspects than just the end medal at the end. So here are the 4 tips from Shane Mullan. Tip number 1, choose your event wisely. So don't go and do an event that you're actually not ready for. So start small, maybe start with like a 5K and 10K and build up, rather than going in and sickening yourself with an event you don't actually enjoy. So he's noticed that a lot. A lot of people will go in, they'll try to do a marathon whenever they should just be doing a sprint, because that's like a saying. And then they hate it, and then they never come back. Tip number 2 is do the right training for the right event. So for any event you're doing, you should do some sort of strength and conditioning work so your body's strong, so you can survive what you're doing. But also, if you're going to run a marathon, then do training towards running a marathon. If you're going to run on a trail, do training towards that. Don't just try to run a marathon and then throw a trail in just to see what you're like, because you'll either go back to tip 1 and you'll not enjoy it, and then you'll just not want to come back and do it. So tip number 3 is make sure you have the right gear for the right run. So if you're going to be a trail runner, buy trail running shoes. If you wear normal shoes, then you're going to have a bad day, you're going to have sore feet doing it, and again, you'll stop enjoying it. So try to put yourself in the best position so that you will enjoy every aspect of the training. So buy the right gear. Don't wear your bathing suit to go running whenever it's freezing. So think about what you're wearing. Wear compression gear, wear something comfortable and warm when it's cold, and comfortable and skimpier when it's warm. Tip number 4 is about fueling up. So whenever you're fueling up, don't add stuff that you don't normally take in your diet, thinking that that's going to put you in the best position to take on a marathon. So whenever you're fueling up, try to get cleaner food. Try to, like I said earlier, build your glycogen levels so that you can recover faster after it, rather than eating a load of stuff you don't normally eat. So your stomach is having to deal with that, making you feel ill, and basically just shitting yourself. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and I really hope you enjoyed it, and you enjoyed the tips from Shane as well. If you have anything you would like me to do a video on, please feel free to comment below. Feel free to tag your friends if you think they would benefit from these tips as well. And if you enjoyed it and you want to see more, please hit the subscribe button at the top.